Okay, these are notes for 2.3. For your take 5, you can write down big ideas. Those are the 8 ways we can analyze history. So with Elizabeth, you can see analogy with um, the cult of Elizabeth. She is using something familiar like the Virgin Mary to describe something new, meaning her reign. Um, you could see irony in the Spanish Armada. The intent was to take over England when the actual event was Spain is squashed. Um, Grapes, lots and lots of religion. Geography, England is an island. That's how they maintain their independence in many ways. Art or achievements, how she supports the arts and literature. Politics, a little bit. Economics, not so much, but lots and lots of religion. Okay, for 2.3 notes, also be thinking about the pursuit of freedom relates to grapes. So we're talking about geographic freedom, religious freedom, all types of freedom. This is our theme for the semester. Remember, this will show up as an essay option on each unit guide, but it won't really be on the tests because it will be on the final in December. So for notes, we're going to leave England and go to the continent of England, or continent of Europe, capital C. And in order to understand some things that were going on there, first we have to understand the setting. So there's about 120 years of really chaotic times. Here's some of the reasons why it is chaotic. When the Europeans are going to the New World, they're bringing back lots of cool products, but in a way it also hurts Europe. Um, it causes inflation, especially with the Spanish gold. When the Spanish bring back lots of gold to Europe, that means the gold that was already in Europe is now worth less. So that's what we call inflation. So that's one issue. That you, as the average peasant, you make the same amount of money that you made last week, but a loaf of bread costs 3 times as much. You add to that, there is a crazy weather thing going on called the Little Ice Age. Little Ice Age was a time of lower temperatures and increased weather. So climate change was not invented by Al Gore. It has happened in the past. It'll probably happen again. In general, in Europe, it was much wetter, much cooler. So that means for your crops, if you're a farmer, maybe the first year or two you love having a lot more rain. But after a few years, your wheat won't grow. Wheat in particular is very susceptible to wet. So your crops are failing. And already, if you're thinking about the inflation, things are already difficult. Also, rodents love to live in crops and rats. So when it starts becoming really rainy and muddy, they go inside and they take with them their fleas. Huge reason why the plague happens when it happens. 1340s, first major instance of the plague. So that's also an issue. With all of this happening, life is very difficult, and people always like to have someone to blame, and they start blaming witches. In this case, most witches were single older women, because if they don't have a husband, they don't have children, what are they doing with all of their time? And so if we can blame them for conspiring with the devil and making our lives difficult, at least it gives us a scapegoat. It gives us someone to blame and to vent our anger. But it's just very unfortunate for those poor women who pretty much will be killed one way or another. So this is the setting in Europe. Add to that the religious issues. We'll start in Spain with Philip II. He is a Habsburg. Habsburg is his family name. He's the king of Spain now. Before, last time we saw him, he was just the prince. We'll get to that in a second. His grandparents, Ferdinand and Isabella, with the Spanish Inquisition, had theoretically cleaned Spain of the Muslims and the Jews. But under Philip's time, there still are some lingering Muslims and Jews in Spain, especially in the south, and they are called Moriscos. And he says that these Moriscos, living especially in the south of Spain, they had converted during the Spanish Inquisition. They converted outwardly, but in their hearts and in their daily practices, they were not Catholic. They were still behaving as though they are Muslims or Jews. So he works to get all of them out of Spain because he wants to make sure his country is fully Catholic. So that's one issue that Philip has. He also has his history with England. He was married to Mary Tudor, who we also know as Bloody Mary. And for a time, he thought this was a very positive relationship because it gave him a lot of potential power. If Mary had lived longer, he would become Prince of England and control both England and Spain and create a Catholic empire together. But when Mary dies and power goes to Elizabeth, he's pretty ticked off that he no longer has that opportunity. So that's one major reason why he sends the Spanish Armada. We know that didn't go very well for him. Another reason, though, in addition to the loss of power from Mary's death, another reason Philip sends the Spanish Armada is he is upset that Elizabeth was helping the Dutch. The Dutch people live in the Netherlands. And the Netherlands had been part of the Spanish Empire. The territory of the Netherlands essentially belongs to Spain. The people who live in the Netherlands, however, are Protestant. So Elizabeth, Protestant, is helping the Dutch, Protestant, against the Catholic Spanish. This is what upsets Philip even more, and just doubly a reason why he sends the Spanish Armada to try and defeat Elizabeth. So to understand this relationship between Spain and the Netherlands, first of all, you have to know where the Netherlands are. Really small country right on the coast of the North Sea, just a little bit east from England. The majority of the people who live there are Protestant, especially the nobility. Almost 100% of the nobles are Protestant. They are being controlled by Spain, and they don't like that. Spain wants them to be Catholic. The Dutch are very industrious, very clever, and because of their location right next to the water, Netherlands means underlands or lower lands. Much of this territory is underwater. It is under the North Sea. So they create this crazy system of dikes. A dike is this physical barrier, and using windmills, they pump out water. Once they've built a physical barrier, pump out water from behind that barrier and reclaim it. They are reclaiming territory from the ocean. So everything you see there in orange was previously underwater. Now, with the dike system and reclaiming land from the sea, not only do they have more territory, but it is usable territory. They can grow crops on it. It is a place for settling. So this is a really cool thing that the Dutch do, but they still are upset about Spanish control of the region. So in the 1560s, the Spanish army hasn't been paid for a while because Philip is losing more and more power. Spanish army hasn't been paid, so they start looting Dutch homes, and the Dutch decide to fight back. But they're not incredibly organized until William of Orange becomes their figurehead, becomes their leader. Orange is the name of a territory, has nothing to do with the fruit, but I just put it there. Orange is a territory, so William, Duke from Orange, he becomes the leader of this Dutch revolt, and he organizes all of them together. And they decide, in order to defeat the Spanish army and finally rid the Netherlands of a Spanish presence, they need to do something drastic. And they break the dikes. They re-flood all of that land that had been reclaimed from the sea in order to defeat the Spanish. They are willing to break all of their hard work and innovation in order to get independence, and that's exactly what they do. The Dutch Republic is established. They are independent, and now they can have their own country. So with that country, they decided to do things differently. They had lived under the Spanish and tried to force them, the Spanish had tried to force them to be Catholic. Now the Dutch Republic says, we will allow any religion to come. If you're Catholic, that's fine. We're Protestant. Most of us are Protestant. But if you're Catholic, that's fine. You're welcome to live here. Just live in maybe a different part of town. Same with Jews. Jews were being discriminated against across Europe. The Dutch invite the Jews to come. They still want them to sort of live in separate communities, but they welcome them there for a number of reasons, because they want religious freedom, but also the Jews have this reputation as being the moneylenders, as being good at business. That's going to help the economy of a brand new country. So the Netherlands needs to find ways to grow their economy. They had been largely a fishing-based economy, but now they are interested in discovering parts of the New World or going to other distant locations, which means they need new ships. And the way many of these ships were created were through joint stock companies. A joint stock company is when a number of people pitch in financially for a product or a company or an item, and then they are given a piece of paper told how much or what the percentage is of their ownership. And then when that item profits, the individual gets back the percentage of their profit. So this is like the stock market today. And the first joint stock company is the Dutch East India Company. So their goal is to go to the East Indies to get spices. The Netherlands is very, very small, but through the Dutch East India Company and joint stock companies, the Netherlands will end up having a big influence around the world. When they bring back the spices or the sugar cane back to the Netherlands and sell it, they have a huge profit. So now the Dutch are becoming very prosperous. With the economy growing, once they take care of their needs, I need a house, I need food, then they can take care of their wants. So this is the beginning of the golden age of Dutch art. We have artists like Vermeer, artists like Rembrandt. People have money, people can afford to buy beautiful things. Also, as individuals are becoming more self-important, they want to be remembered. So they're going to pay for paintings and have themselves in the paintings. The water still, though, is very important in terms of fishing, but also getting from place to place, getting to the parts of their empire. Land, though, is still at a premium. That's why the houses are very, very narrow. Even though they were able to reclaim land, there still is not much. So houses are very tall and skinny. And the tulip. The tulip becomes an important part of Dutch culture. It's not something you need, it's something that you want simply because it's beautiful. An entire economy springs up around the tulip. If you go to either here in Canvas or to the YouTube page, there's a cool video about tulipomania. There's also a video about why the Netherlands and the Dutch and Holland are the same thing. So the Dutch gain independence and end up with a pretty cool country once they get out from the control of the Spanish. That is it for 2.3.